Good morning and welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier. Thank you for stopping by. Coming to Africa, have a look at these charts. This is from Africa Confidential in an article headlined Glitches in the Growth. How does the US Africa Command view the current threat landscape on the African continent? AFRICOM Commander General Waldhauser revealed AFRICOM's posture in front of the Senate. The statement is on the website in full if you want to read that. Interesting points. A secure, stable and prosperous Africa is an enduring American interest. For scale, Africa is over 3 times larger than the US. The US Africa Command area of responsibility encompasses 53 countries with a population of 1.3 billion. By 2050, this figure is forecasted to almost double to over 2.54 billion, with 1 out of every 4 people on the planet living on the African continent. 41% of Africans are under the age of 15, while 60% of the total population is under the age of 24. Our efforts to ensure strategic access must also be viewed through the lens of competitor influence and coercive activities which seek to gain advantages over the US by moving faster in economic and security markets where we are constrained by our values and law. China is a strategic competitor which uses economic and security outreach to foster investment incentives, jobs and infrastructure growth in return for access to Africa's strategic locations, natural resources and markets. China has most successfully employed this model in Djibouti, holding 80% of the government of Djibouti's debt, where access through the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, the Red Sea and the Suez Canal remains a US strategic imperative. Today, on the African side of the Red Sea and in the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, which encompasses Somalia, Djibouti, Eritrea, Sudan and Egypt, the great powers and the Gulf states both cooperate and compete for real estate and port facilities. So going back to comments from Jason Warren, AFRICOM posture is framed by priorities of national defense strategy with resultant concern, great power competition, especially vis-a-vis China and Russia, violent extremist organizations called VEOs are a key target, saying that the US is shifting away from terrorism and towards great power competition, means it's focusing on countering Chinese and Russia's presence. About China, Chinese threat to US access to markets and ports, China's use of usurious debt trap diplomacy, attractive Chinese loans to strategic allies like Djibouti, Senegal and Angola, lack of African workers for Chinese-funded projects. I go back to, I think it's 2012, when I said the US has a decisive hard power advantage over the African continent, and that increasingly I see the US deploying its hard power advantage to tilt the pitch and staunch the Chinese advance. And I was saying, this is in 2012 to CCTV, I said in some respects, in that time Obama was president, pivot to Asia, detours through Africa. China has made a parabolic advance across the continent, and one of the desired side effects of staunching the Al-Qaeda advance is that it also counters the Chinese advance via the insertion of US hard power. And I was talking about US Africa Command, and then I was quoting Zbigniew Brzezinski, who once said 3 grand imperatives of imperial geostrategy are to prevent collusion, maintain security dependence among the vassals, keep tributaries pliant and protected, and keep the barbarians from coming together. Then in August last year, I was writing about the Indian Ocean economy in a port race, and I said today from Massawa, Eritrea, admittedly on the Red Sea, to Djibouti, from Berbera to Mogadishu, from Lamu to Mombasa, to Tanga, to Bagamoyo, to Dar es Salaam, through Beira and Maputo, all the way to Durban and all points in between, we're witnessing a port race of sorts as everyone seeks to get a piece of the Indian Ocean port action. China, the BRI initiative, the Gulf countries who now appear to see the Horn of Africa as their hinterland, Japan and India to a lesser degree are all jostling for optimal geo-economic positioning. As we scan the blue economy, it is worth appreciating that maritime shipping is the lifeblood of Africa, with over 90% of the continent's imports and exports transported by sea. Andrew Koribiko says the Indian Ocean region is expected to become the geostrategic center of gravity in the new Cold War. This is a photograph of the Indian Ocean from 420 South Diani Beach. This is a photo of an evening in Maputo. As I said, a sine qua non of Obama's pivot to Asia is US-NATO power projection over the Indian Ocean. 2013, I said I have no doubt that the Indian Ocean is set to regain its glory days. I was quoting Felipe Fernandez Amesto, who says the precocity of the Indian Ocean as a zone of long-range navigation and cultural exchange is one of the glaring facts of history, made possible by the reversible escalator of the monsoon wind. And on that point, have a listen to my interview with Maria João Lopo de Carvalho about Luis de Camões and her book, which followed his 16th century journey from Portugal round the Cape of Good Hope, Mozambique, Mombasa, Malindi, Oman, all the way to Macau. And on that note, this is a photograph of Ali the navigator, who took us on the Indian Ocean to Wasini Island once. And another point which was brought up by AFRICOM was about the insurgency tail risk, and I said it remains, and how it plays out will have important consequence for ourselves. A busy election year for Africa. Look at this map, ISS Africa. Major elections to take place in Nigeria, Senegal, South Africa, Algeria, Tunisia, Mozambique. 11 presidential seats up for grabs. South African all shares up 2.18% this year. Dollar versus rand, as I said, we've softened up here. We're at 1368.26. Total has made a significant gas condensate discovery on the Brulpadda prospects. This is 175 kilometers off the southern coast of South Africa. With this discovery, Total has opened up a new world-class gas and oil play and is well positioned to test several follow-on prospects on the same block. The Total CEO said he needs to tame Lake Albert crocodiles to move the Uganda project in 2019. There are many crocodiles in Lake Albert. We need to domesticate the crocodiles before we move forward, Puyan quipped during the call. In an effort to rein in the galloping birth rate, the Egyptian government has launched a family planning program named Two Are Enough. A child is born every 15 seconds and we add 2.5 million babies every year. Think of what this means in terms of additional school places, hospital beds, vaccinations, and all the other rights of children. Egypt's population hit 98 million in December, and Mr. Othman said it would rise by another 20 million over the next decade if the birth rate did not fall. The aim, Mr. Othman said, is to reduce the fertility rate from 3.5 children per woman to 2.4 by 2030. Despite economic growth that reached 5.5% in 2018, Egypt has failed to generate the more than 800,000 jobs needed every year just to absorb new entrants to the labour market. The February 16th, and that's very close now, is the date of the vote in Nigeria, which pits Muhammad Buhari, a military ruler in the 1980s, who came into office in 2015, against the main opposition candidate Atiku Abubakar. One of Buhari's fellows, Rufai, said, "We're waiting for the person who will come and intervene. They will go back in body bags because nobody will come to Nigeria and tell us how to run our country." It's a very close election, and that's always problematic in Africa. Nigerian All Share is up 0.01%. Ghana Stock Exchange is down 2.76%. Tshisekedi announced his intention for the DR Congo to join the East African community here in Kenya. A political union for East Africa, as The Economist, regional leaders have big ambitions but short tempers. Africa's regional institutions do not lack ambition. African Union's master plan promises a rich, peaceful continent crisscrossed by high-speed trains. Eventually, its target is 2063, a date well past the likely retirement date of all the bigwigs who signed the plan. The EAC, by contrast, has no time to waste. It wants to form a single currency by 2024. At a recent summit, heads of state discussed drafting an East African constitution with the ultimate goal of political federation. And then talking about various tensions, Kagame and Museveni, Kenya and Tanzania, saying Kenya and Tanzania, the two largest members, together they account for 3/5 of the region's population and 3/4 of its GDP, yet commerce between them is hobbled by a trade war. And then saying, the escalating tensions, each wants integration as long as he's in charge. Let's move on to Kenya. This afternoon I bid goodbye to my friend, His Excellency Felix Tshisekedi, who's been in the country for a 2-day official visit. Uhuru Kenyatta was the only president to attend the inauguration, and clearly there are going to be some serious dividends from that. Kenya and the DR Congo have agreed to strengthen the existing bilateral relations for the benefit of the citizens of our two countries. Kenya's shilling, last time I looked, was at 100.2, and it's strengthened all year. Every January, every year, every forecast about the shilling predicts a 10 to 15% devaluation. It's actually mind-boggling. The key levers with regard to the shilling are the price of fuel and the amount of inward remittances. And also, I think we underestimate the regional safe haven status that the shilling has earned. A move below 100 would catch a lot of people off guard. We're very close to that. Nairobi All Shares had a blinding 2019. It's up 14.25% so far this year. It's still one-way traffic. There is a dollar glut in the market from diaspora remittances and interest in our government paper. 28th of Jan, I wrote a piece, Reason for Optimism. I was saying the Nairobi Securities Exchange had opened 2019 bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. Flurry of activity. Bharti Airtel in talks to buy Telkom Kenya. Bharti wants to fatten up its Africa business before an IPO. Banking consolidation, planned merger between CBA and NIC and a buyout of Jamii Bora. Private equity has taken a big bite of Kantaria's Prime Bank. Digital banking stays red hot. Safaricom notched up 1 million users for its new overdraft feature on the M-Pesa platform in just 8 days. Now it's turned out customers have borrowed $62 million in 1 month on the overdraft service, revealing a huge pent-up demand for instant microloans in the economy. The number of customers who have opted for Fuliza is 4.2 million. Safaricom has surged 21.85% so far this year. East African Breweries is up 22.46% this year. A lot of that reaction came after the release of half-year results, which saw profit before tax rise 33.44%. Have a listen to an interview I did with Andrew Cowan, MD and CEO of East African Breweries. NSE 20 is up 7.39% this year. The top performers, NIC Bank up 38.31%, Kenya Power up 25.8%, Transcentury up 24%, Equity Bank 23.39%, EABL 22.46%, Safaricom 21.86%, Centum 21.2%, CIC Insurance 19.69%. If you're interested in diving into another share, there are more than 50 listed there, then there's a link on Rich Wrap-Ups as well. You're looking at a 1960s photo of one of Kenya's great tuskers, Ahmed the Great, who was in the Marsabit National Reserve. UAE eyes Kenya's maritime sector. They've just bought out Dodwell and its mother firm Inchcape. The deal has been approved by the regulator, and this speaks to that story about the Indian Ocean economy in a port race. I wish you a tremendous weekend, and I thank you for coming by.